Her gods were demons. Exorcist Diary, 252. When Mem came to us, she had been suffering intensely for many months after leaving Tibetan Buddhism. She told me, I was tricked and deceived into believing that Buddha was the same as God. Even my father told me this when I was 8 years old. She said that the group's deities were actually demons and the gurus were their minions. Once she left, the gurus threatened her with the worst hell imaginable and incessantly tried to get her to commit suicide. It became clear that their rituals against her were actually black magic invoking Satan's demons. She was suffering physically and emotionally from severe demonic assaults. Mem made a good confession, is now going to Mass and prays the Rosary daily, and asks Jesus for help. She participates in regular deliverance prayers, which bring her palpable relief. Having practiced Tibetan Buddhism for 35 years and willingly giving herself to Satan and his minions, her road to full recovery will be a long one. Mem courageously decided to share her story with others to warn them. She now has a website at tantricdeception.com. Below are some thoughts which Mem gave me to share with you. I ask everyone who reads this to say a prayer for Mem's full recovery and for the conversion of all those who unwittingly worship demons, believing they are gods. Amen.
The Road to Perdition. I was deeply involved in Tibetan Buddhism for 35 years, and now at the end of my Buddhist path I am experiencing extreme mental and physical torment. Tantric Buddhism is supposed to be a path of peace that leads to enlightenment, a state of mind both blissful and beyond suffering. Having been raised Catholic, I had faith and devotion in Jesus Christ, but I drifted away from the church when I was 15 years old and was agnostic until I encountered Tibetan Buddhism in my early 20s. This religion placed huge emphasis on the human guru who we were supposed to venerate as a living Buddha. Besides the human guru, the yidam or meditational deity was of paramount importance. I now believe that Tibetan Buddhism is a classic case of Satan appearing as an angel of light. Many of the gurus appeared beatific and were considered to be saints. My first teacher had many charisms including clairvoyance, healing, and divination. I personally witnessed his extraordinary abilities many times. Rigorous training was required that challenged us to the fullest extent of our abilities. We had to learn the Tibetan language, adopt the Tibetan customs and worldview, learn to play the ritual instruments, study Buddhist philosophy, do preliminary practices that involved hundreds of thousands of prostrations, purification mantras, and thousands of invocations and mantras to become yoked with the Guru's mind. I was fully brainwashed. The Guru manipulated some of his nuns into sexual relations, while deceiving them about his intentions and pretending to be in a monogamous spiritual marriage with each of them. They say the bigger the lie, the easier it is to maintain. Most believed that he was a holy being, and a completely celibate monk. I prayed to become free of being his sexual slave, and he acknowledged it, but from that point on he began cursing me. The next 2 years in the retreat were a living hell. I managed to escape from him and his Buddhist center, but we had been taught that if we abandoned our Buddhist practices, we would go to the worst hell imaginable. They continued to curse me, and finally the head of the lineage and another sorcerer performed a ritual of annihilation on me using an effigy. By then, many Tibetan gurus had been publicly exposed for sexual, physical, and mind control abuses of their students. The Tibetan lamas were angry and sought revenge. I was targeted because I had begun to question the entire system. Satan doesn't give anything for free. They saw me as a risk. The Tibetans used black magic rituals against their perceived enemies, both human and in the spirit realm. These practices were not talked about or taught to their Western disciples. We were all brainwashed to believe that the gurus were great bodhisattvas incapable of harming even a flea. During the practice of Guru Yoga, I prayed to become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of my root guru, and from that point on, I was unknowingly possessed by him and his familiar spirit, the meditational deity. They decided I had to be destroyed, and once the ritual with the effigy was performed, my life turned into a living hell. I was burned at night, stuck with sharp objects, and attacked in my bed by demons. The guru appeared in my room night after night ordering me to commit suicide. At that point, I was fully possessed. My mind was fed with horrific images of what they were going to do to me after I died and was reborn in their hell. Then they began attacking my body, causing my stomach to blow up in real time. Several people saw it happening. One deity, who I now know to be the Python spirit of divination, the Kundalini spirit, was wrapped around my torso and was constantly squeezing me in an energetic stranglehold. The squeezing was accompanied by intense burning in the stomach and chest area. When I refused to commit suicide, they threatened to kill me by inducing a heart attack or giving me cancer. During this time, I met a young man who was also suffering from Kundalini possession, but since he had been Catholic, he started praying the rosary for himself and for me. For the first time, I started to feel a little better. He encouraged me to see an exorcist. I was so deeply brainwashed in Buddhism that the thought of returning to the Catholic Church seemed impossible. But I was struck by the fact that his prayers were helping. At the same time, I came across Mr. Rossiti's book, Diary of an American Exorcist. It made a huge impression on me. I reached out to him, and he prayed with me, and I began to feel some hope and relief for the first time in a year. He encouraged me to go to confession and return to the Catholic faith, and I did this. Slowly, over time, I regained some control over my life. I'm still severely oppressed and tortured at night, but it is less than before. I can work again, and there are moments in the day when I can even feel a little happiness in the simple things of life. I have a long way to go before I am fully healed and delivered. They still control a portion of my mind. They control my dreams and subterranean thoughts. I now understand that I made a pact with Satan and that the occult is Satan's domain. I wish to warn anyone who is tempted to explore other religions to be extremely careful. There is only one God, and He is the God of the Holy Bible. I wish to warn others before they unwittingly become ensnared in one of Satan's traps. I have created a website to this end. tantricdeception.com. Amen.